slide. Corruption is an international problem acquiring actual international due to the process of democratization, global distribution and integration of market relations. Illegal corrupt relations affect the interest and prosperity not of only one country but of many countries of the world. Corruption is an illegal activity which is used to buy the officer their rights and job opportunities for personal enrichment. Bribery and corruption of public and political figures. A characteristic feature of corruption is the conflict between the official section and those of his employer's interest, or the conflict between elected official actions and the public interest. The main incentive for corruption is the possibility of receiving economic profit by using power authorities, and the main deterrent is the risk of disclosure and punishment. According to macroeconomic and political economic studies, corruption is the biggest obstacle to economic growth and development that can jeopardize any positive transformation. Corruption is common to all countries, regardless of the geographical location, political system, or the level of economic development. There are different types of corruption: bribery, spoliation, fraud, chantage, overuse, and nepotism. Ukraine is one of the most corrupt states. The main causes of corruption in Ukraine was and still is the poorly constructed system of government, the incompetence of top managers in the state, openly imperfect judicial system, political corruption in the parliament, lack of political will of national leaders to effectively confront the corruption manifestation, foremost the manifestation of political corruption and the weakness of civil society institutions. The most negative consequences of the impact of corruption on the economy, the researcher's attitude: expansion of the shadow economy, violation of the competitive mechanism of the market, slowing the emergence of efficient private owners, inefficient use of budgetary funds, worsening climate, and extension of the scale of corruption in non-governmental organizations. I also think that people do not believe that the authorities are able to establish, monitor, and adhere to fair rules of the market game. Ukraine has created sufficient prerequisite for the development of an effective state mechanism of prevention and counteraction of corruption. In October 2014, a number of anti-corruption laws was adopted to regulate the key sectors of anti-corruption activities in the country. Unfortunately, the government failed to implement the strategy as testified by the European Commission. The economy of the country clearly responds to the government's inaction in the implementation both of economic reforms and anti-corruption programs. This is evident according to the statistics for 2015. For 2015, we see the growth of the gross domestic product, blue line, and incomes of the citizens, red line, as well as the turnover at current prices, green line. However, this increase was due to inflation increasing the money mass. At the same time, there is decrease in real incomes of the population. As you can see in diagram 2, gross domestic product. The blue line represents gross domestic product per person, and the red line represents real available income of the population. The reasons for this decrease are the delay of the government in making decisions about increasing the minimum wage, changing the pay scale, high cost for utilities, arrears of wages, etc. During September 2016, the total amount of areas of wages increased by 4%, or 78.2 million hryvnias, as for October the 1st was 1,978.5 million hryvnias. The arrears to employees of economically active enterprises increased in September by 5.7%, or 70.7 million hryvnias. And as for October the 1st, 1,307.8 million hryvnias. The end of 2013, beginning of 2014, despite the tumultuous events in Ukraine, the beginning of the aggression of Russia has been marked by the increase of foreign investments in Israel. The growth has continued until mid-2015. In this diagram, you can see foreign direct investments from the countries of the world in the economy of Ukraine, million American dollars. The delay in implementing reform in the tax system, corruption in state fiscal service, verification of financial inspection, elimination of a number of banks in Ukraine, inflation and many more factors has led to reduction of investment in all regions in Ukraine. The authorities have initiated many reforms, but they were not brought to their logical conclusion. According to the study, the level of perception of corruption by business, conducted by Transparency International Ukraine and some other institutions, in February-March 2015, the level of corruption in state government authorities remains unchanged. According to the survey, 57.2% of respondents believe that situation concerning corruption for a period of past 6 months has remained unchanged. 27.7% say the situation has worsened, and only 15.1% the respondents noted improvement of the situation. I should say that there is a significant progress in reforming anti-corruption legislation, but it is not the result of political will of the authorities, but the birth of a new, equally influential subject of political will, the civil society. Today, the CPI index of the country is 27 points out of possible 100, which is only 1 point more than last year. In the global rating, Ukraine occupies the 130th position out of 168 positions. Last year, the country was on the 142nd position out of 175 positions. As you can see on diagram 5, rating on CPI, the first Ukraine, the last Poland. Poland takes 35 place. Ukraine has managed to implement a small increase of the index by increasing public commendation of corrupt officials, creating anti-corruption bodies, and the emergence of the movement of exposures of corruption. But procrastination with the actual punishment of corrupt officials and increasing corrupt in relation between business and the authorities do not allow Ukraine to make a decisive step forward according to the indicators of CPI. Ukraine has managed to improve the ratings this year due to a more critical attitude of the society of corruption. Alexei Khmaro notes, the indicators of this year's CPI index confirm that the driving force of changes in Ukrainian citizens themselves, public organizations, investigative journalists, exposers of corruption. They control officials under their pressure the cases against corrupt officials in power reach the court. But then the system resists and really a few corrupt officials receive a fair punishment. A significant sign in overcoming corruption is the phenomenon in the introduction of so-called electronic demography in Ukraine. The sense of e-demography is reduced to using information technology to strengthen the democratic processes in the country. The e-democracy is the foundation for public participation in decision-making and influence of on the creation of public policy. The responsible for the development of e-democracy is primarily a government. Establishing a Prozoro system can serve as an example of e-democracy in Ukraine. The Ukrainian word Prozoro means clean, can serve as an example of e-democracy in Ukraine. The main principle of the system is to allow everyone to see everything. Nowadays, anybody can find out who, what, and how purchases by the taxpayers' funds. This is the link, the system, which you can visit and see how it works. The objectives of the reform are the following: eradication and systemic prevention of corruption, transparency of government procurement, objective evaluation of the tender application, simplicity and ease of procedures application, transition to electronic document flow, and full reporting and analysis of each public procurement. Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. In the recent year, under pressure of public, international community, and even financial assistance of other countries in Ukraine, certain steps towards fighting corruption have been made. Because the solution of the problem of corruption is one of priorities for the Ukrainian society. Therefore, it is appropriate to listen to the recommendation of Transparency International and continue to root out corruption. The key media of political view, such as the President of Ukraine, Cabinet of Ministers, and fractions of political forces in the Supreme Council in Ukraine, should committedly demonstrate the political will for reforms in the anti-corruption and other areas. They should ensure timely and proper implementation of the state program for the implementation of the Foundation of State Anti-Corruption Policy for 2015-2017, the implementation of the requirements of the laws of Ukraine on prevention of corruption and on Foundation of State Anti-Corruption Policy for 2014-2017, ensure the full operation of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the National Agency for Prevention of Corruption. They should publish reports on the implementation of the state program, inform on the implementation of anti-corruption policy documents, and involve civil society institutions to conduct researches on anti-corruption issues. Within the international cooperation, they have to adopt a law on the accounting chamber due to the need to strengthen control over the receipt of funds to the state budget and the use of macro-financial assistance from the international community. They have to implement the law on judicial system and status of judges and strengthen the independence of judges and guaranteeing management of impartial justice by them. They should implement a comprehensive reform of civil service aimed at protecting civil officials from political influence and clear separation of political and professional civil officials, enhancing their integrity and professionalism. The American Vice Joe Biden notes the following. This country has a second chance to establish a true democracy. Many of the young people in this council were the ones who came to the Maidan and loudly demanded this from their government, and now they are in the position to have implement it into reality. Nowadays, in front of them there are two major creeds, Russian aggression and corruption. If this can be done through joint efforts, the current council will go down in history as the founder of a united, democratic and free Ukraine, which it was not before. Thank you for your attention.
Questions? You have a question?